Lies of P Overture DLC came out of nowhere with some of the best boss designs I have ever seen in a Souls-like game. For a 16-hour-long DLC, we get a total of 8 unique bosses to challenge ourselves with, and make no mistake, they are nothing like the ones in the base game. NeoWiz Studios has clearly learned from past experience and made sure to elevate these bosses to a level we've rarely seen before. Each encounter demands incredible patience and perfect timing as the bosses hit hard and attack relentlessly. This DLC truly tests your mettle, and as a devout Souls-like player, I couldn't be happier. Now, I've never made a tier list like this before, so I'd like to clarify a few things first. I'm playing on Legendary Stalker difficulty, which is the hardest, and I'll be ranking these bosses based on 4 factors: difficulty, design, lore, and of course, fun. The ranking will go from 1 to 10, 1 being an absolutely horrendous fight, and 10 being perfection. And with all that out of the way, let us begin. At number 8, we have a boss that some of you may have missed, the pre-metamorphic Green Hunter, which is actually the baby version of the Green Monster of the Swamp from the base game. I think it's really cool when DLC characters have connections to the base game, whether they're friends or foes, but in this case, the execution felt a bit weak. This is the only boss on this list without a positive score, simply because I found it to be, well, just average. I understand that he's meant to resemble his adult form, but having a nearly identical moveset took away a lot from the excitement, since technically, I've already fought him before. One problem I did have was the walk to the arena. It takes way too long to get there. Thankfully, this is usually offset by the fact that you'll most likely kill him on your first or second try. In terms of difficulty, he was the easiest boss to defeat, and I'm still not sure if that's because his attack pattern is slow and predictable, or my brain just instinctively remembered his moveset. Either way, this fight wasn't anything to write home about, but it wasn't terrible either, as his moveset does provide a decent challenge. All things considered, I'm giving this boss a 5 out of 10. It's a nice callback to the base game, but nothing too exciting. And with that, let's move on to the next boss on this list. Number 7 might be a bit controversial, as my take on this boss likely differs from what most people think. Veronique, leader of the Sweepers, is a hyper-aggressive boss who attacks relentlessly, giving you very little room to breathe. Normally, I love this kind of fights more than anything, but in Veronique's case, her attack pattern includes so many bait attacks that it almost made me lose my mind. First, the engine on her hammer kicks in and you're certain she's about to strike, so naturally, you try to parry. But then, she pauses for a split second, just enough for your guard to drop, and then, she lands a devastating blow, crushing both your body and your pride. I can't recall how many times it took me to get used to these damn attacks, but man, was it frustrating at times. Other than that, Veronique is a very fine boss who pushes your parrying skills to the maximum. By parrying her consistently, you can actually break her weapon, making her significantly weaker and preventing her from creating those annoying fire circles that can set you on fire if you stand in them for too long. Her jump and spin attacks are very predictable, but so satisfying to parry. She radiates the aura of a true warrior, and her shouts during the fight make the experience even more immersive. You truly feel like you're up against a berserker who could crush you at any moment if you're not careful enough. Even though I was frustrated at times, I had a lot of fun fighting her, and that's why Veronique is getting a very respectable score of 7 out of 10. Okay, don't be mad, but Tyrannical Predator is at number 6. And before you say stuff like, how the hell did you put him above Veronique? Let me explain. Tyrannical Predator is a large-scale boss that, despite his size, can hit pretty fast. With attacks that vary between quick snapping jaws and the heavier body slams, he can also grab and even give you a heart attack. I can't wait to find a boss. I found him to be extremely similar to the infamous Golden Hippo from Elden Ring, a boss that, contrary to popular opinion, I actually really liked. Both bosses share similar attack patterns that give you solid windows to counter or evade, but heavily punishes you when you don't. And surprisingly, they also share the same weakness: too small of an arena. Imagine having to fight an elephant in a chicken coop. That's exactly what battling Tyrannical Predator feels like. And the fact that every single hit sends you flying 10 kilometers backwards doesn't help either. You end up spending most of the fight hugging the wall and praying the camera doesn't betray you, only to be met with the frustration of being unable to move or even attack. What? Am I stuck? What? Oh my god, I got literally stuck. Yeah, I got stuck in a wall twice in a row. Literally twice. My weapon clinked. I hit the wall with my weapon. I honestly find it weird when developers make mistakes like this. I mean, how do you test this boss and think to yourself, yes, I love being unable to see anything half the time. And you know what? Let's throw in some obstacles on the ground to make movement even more restrictive. It's a bit sad that such a well-designed boss with fair mechanics doesn't live up to its full potential just because of a poorly designed arena. But even with this major flaw, Tyrannical Predator still manages to earn a solid 7.5 on my scale. Lumakio, leader of the Bastards, is an arrogant gentleman who initially comes off as a friendly character, only to later be revealed as the one who's been trying to get rid of you all along. Having multiple phases, his fighting style consists mostly of swift attacks, dashes, and parries using his elegant umbrella weapon, with the occasional grenade thrown into the mix. Lumakio's first phase is fairly simple and not too difficult to beat on your first try since his initial health pool is extremely low and his attacks have very obvious tells, making them easy to parry if you pay minimal attention. He begins his second phase by drinking an unknown elixir that appears to revitalize him at first. He heals a bit, his attacks get slightly faster, and his grenade attack now has a dash incorporated into it. But just like in the first phase, it's highly predictable and no trouble to deal with after a few tries. The real fun begins in the third phase, where we get to see the final results of drinking that elixir. Lumakio turns into a horrendous monster that takes all the moves from his previous phases and throws them out the window. His once predictable attack pattern is now replaced with a chaotic flurry of jumps, swipes, decay, and a brutal mix of swift and heavy attacks, all blended together so you never really know what's coming next. This transformation completely shattered the foundation of the fight, making me go from, oh, I can easily beat him, to, please God, help me. I love when developers do that, giving you a full sense of security by implementing an easy early phase, only to completely destroy your confidence later in the fight. It makes you rethink your entire strategy and realize that if you don't adapt to this radical change of pace, this boss will destroy you, over and over again. For me, this turned Lumakio into an unexpected surprise, as defeating him took way longer than I had anticipated and required a lot of mental resilience. And because of that third phase, Lumakio, leader of the Bastards, gets a score of 8 out of 10. Two-Faced Overseer is a very unique boss in the sense that he doesn't follow the traditional phase change formula. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's take a step back and talk about the early part of the fight. When you first enter the arena, you're given the option to call upon the tracker to help you fight the Overseer, but I like a good challenge, so I never called him. And boy, this was the right decision. The Overseer is a large boss with a floating head inside a glass tube, and he wields an axe that looked like it was made from someone's spine, which I think is pretty cool. He feels like a buffed up Frankenstein monster seeping with madness, and in my eyes, it's one of the better boss designs in Lies of P. His attack pattern, as you would expect, is comprised of slow, heavy, charged attacks that are easy to parry but insanely punishing if you fail. So far so good, right? What could possibly go wrong? Well, let's just say that after taking a few hits, the Overseer gets mad. Really mad. Fully enraged, his entire body turns red and his head rotates to reveal a second face. One that not even a mother could love. A brain with razor-sharp teeth and multiple eyes. This monster was made to kill, and you can feel it in every second spent fighting his enraged form. His attacks become more savage and ruthless, with a 9-part combo that demands insane parry timing and a brutal grab that can literally end your life on the spot. This guy has a lot of cards up his sleeve and constantly surprises you with new moves at varying speeds, forcing you to react on the spot or perish. The cool thing about this fight is that if you deal enough damage while he's enraged, he reverts back to his relaxed form, which by that point you already know how to handle. So the fight keeps switching between the two forms multiple times, and I think it's a clever twist on the traditional phase change formula. In my opinion, Two-Faced Overseer is the second hardest boss of this DLC. It took me quite some time to defeat him, but I had a lot of fun doing so, and for that, I'll give the Overseer an 8.5 out of 10. We finally reached the top 3 bosses on this list, and what better way to kick things off than with Markiona, Puppeteer of Death. NeoWiz Studios have managed to do what almost every other Souls-like game struggles to: make a good duo fight. Whenever we think about a good duo fight, the first thing that usually comes to mind is the battle with Ornstein and Smo or the Demon Prince from the Dark Souls series. And I think that's because so many other duo fights are either too easy or just straight up unfair. Markiona is perfectly balanced in a sense that she has clear indicators and great tells, but also provides a good challenge. As her title suggests, she fights using a magnificent flying puppet with a very distinct playstyle, flying all over the place and delivering mostly heavy mace attacks, along with a variety of kicks that can deal serious damage if not avoided. Markiona herself has her own unique fighting style, made up of several orb attacks that are pretty easy to deal with on their own. But when they work in conjunction with her puppet, things become much more difficult. To soften this difficulty, the developers added clear indicators for who's about to attack. The puppet glows red when it's taking the lead, while Markiona glows blue on her turn. This was a brilliant way to keep Markiona fair, but balanced. The puppet is clearly the heavy hitter, while Markiona deals complementary damage from the sidelines. Focusing on the puppet and bringing it down to low health stuns Markiona, giving you ample room to inflict massive amounts of damage on her while she's busy regenerating it. But you don't have to do that. Instead, you can choose to focus on Markiona herself, dodging the puppet's attacks and bringing her down faster, but at a much higher risk of dying. After getting Markiona down to half HP, she and her puppet go into overdrive mode, making their attacks stronger and more frequent, while adding some new moves to the mix. The attacks aren't too brutal on their own, but since they now attack together, you need to be extremely careful and aware to not get caught in a nasty grab or combo. All things considered, Markiona, Puppeteer of Death is the finest duo boss battle I've ever seen in a Souls-like game, and for that, she gets a very honorable score of 9 out of 10. Alright, I'll admit it, I love Anguished Guardian of the Ruins. I'm fully aware that this will be my most controversial take in this video, but I'm ready to take on the firestorm that's coming in the comment section. I've never played Bloodborne since I don't own a PlayStation console, but fighting Guardian of the Ruins is exactly what I'd imagine fighting Ludwig would feel like. A giant, hulking monster that still retains some trace of its past humanity, of a noble warrior trying to protect something. The fight starts with Guardian of the Ruins hatching out of an egg-shaped cocoon in a very ominous and grotesque way, which made me so much more excited to fight this boss, since it really leans into the dark horror fantasy genre that I absolutely adore. Already starting on the right foot, the fight itself is just peak design. It is very difficult to balance giant boss fights since you can't really tell what they're doing, as most of the time half their body is off your screen. But somehow, the developers found a way. The boss has a small hand that he uses for most attacks, making parries viable without feeling out of place. The use of his gigantic arms comes in the form of very cinematic heavy attacks, which, strangely enough, you can also parry. Doing so leaves him open to more attacks on his weak spots, which are these weird crystals sticking out of his head and left arm. Most of his attacks are slow and predictable at first, but he gains a lot more momentum in the second phase, which, by the way, the transition to that phase is so goddamn sick. I mean, he literally calls on powers from beyond to bless his weapon with divine light. It honestly can't get any better. But this transition isn't just for show. He gains several new attacks in the form of light pillars that follow his swipes, a channeled Death Ring, and whatever the hell that wind attack is. I couldn't even dodge it. Every attack leaves him open at the end of it, regardless of parrying, and I absolutely love that. Giving players the option to decide how they want to deal with this ginormous boss is great, since different players have different strategies for bosses this size. Admittedly, defeating him was on the easier side, but I don't think it detracts from the experience even slightly. I love fighting giant bosses. It makes me feel powerful. I understand that you can't have a massive boss dancing around the battlefield like Lumakio or Markiona, but that doesn't mean the fight can't be fun. And man, NeoWiz Studios definitely pulled it off here. At the end of the day, even though the fight was short, I enjoyed every single minute of it. And for that, Anguished Guardian of the Ruins gets a solid 9.5 out of 10. Dear viewers, I'm honored to announce that at number 1, we have none other than Arlecchino, the Blood Artist. Little to no surprise, Arlecchino has topped almost every tier list for this DLC, and I think we all know why. First, let's talk about the arena. The blood-soaked Rose Garden is one of the most beautiful arena I've ever seen in a Souls-like game. It perfectly complements Arlecchino's title as the Blood Artist and really deepens your immersion. You genuinely feel like you're about to face the most maniacal, unhinged opponent in the entire game. And boy, you're not wrong. The fight starts with a cutscene of Leia, the legendary stalker, facing off against Arlecchino, only to be quickly overpowered and tossed aside like she was nothing due to her weakened state. You can ask Leia to help you battle Arlecchino and make the fight easier, but I'd highly recommend you don't do that, since he has one of the best boss designs out there and you really want the full experience. At first, Arlecchino doesn't seem all that menacing. His attacks are fast, but they don't deal much damage. Hitting or blocking multiple times can also stagger him, giving you the perfect opportunity to deal massive damage. With the right build, you can soak up most of his attacks, heal during his downtime, and take him down pretty quickly thanks to his low health pool. That makes his first phase pretty easy. I even managed to beat it on my first try. But that was all just a warm-up for the real challenge, his second phase. Drowned in euphoric rage, Arlecchino transforms into the masochistic, murderous puppet that he truly is. Now equipped with all sorts of advanced mechanical weaponry, he slowly marches toward you with what can only be described as pure aura farming. Arlecchino's entire moveset switches to something completely different, essentially turning this into an entirely new fight and forcing you to learn everything from scratch. He always starts the phase by soaring into the air and hurling skull-shaped blood orbs at you, which are fairly easy to dodge. But then, he crashes down at insane speed, causing even the most seasoned players to mistime their block. What comes next is a series of chaotic combos that I couldn't even get past in the first hour of fighting him. The speed and ferocity of Arlecchino's attacks reminded me once again why I was so terrified of Malenia, Blade of Miquella, in Elden Ring. They both have a rabid attack pattern that won't let you breathe for a second, preventing you from doing even the most basic things like healing or running away. Arlecchino forces you to use both parries and dodges, since some of his attacks leave a trail of unblockable explosions behind, and I can't even remember how many times I got hit by that because I forgot to dodge on time. The rest of his kit also includes insane jump attacks and even a grab, but nothing come close to his savage claw and sawtooth reel attacks, which, my god, was terrifying to learn how to parry. To add insult to injury, he also applies the break status on certain attacks, which halves your heals, making this fight even more punishing. That being said, successfully parrying his attacks break him quite easily and leaves him open to a stagger attack that deals a huge chunk of damage. That makes learning his patterns all the more rewarding. You really feel like you're battling for your life, where one wrong move can spell your demise. Arlecchino is a merciless killing machine, and it shows in every single move he makes. All of that comes together to make him one of the best bosses I've ever fought in a video game. I aim to speak about every boss for around 2 minutes in this video, but when it comes to Arlecchino, I just couldn't stop myself from talking. From his lore to his abilities, and even in the way he dies, Arlecchino is going all out. He is the most formidable boss in Lies of P, and deserves every bit of praise coming his way. If NeoWii Studios keeps this level of boss design in a sequel, we're looking at a bright future. And for all of these reasons, I believe, without a single doubt in my mind, that Arlecchino, the Blood Artist, is a 10 out of 10 boss fight. Not just in Lies of P terms, but compared to other games as well. And that's pretty much all I had to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this boss ranking video. It's my first time doing one of these, so make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribe for more content in the future. And if you want to see more Lies of P content, I recently made a video where I talk about the entire Overture DLC, so be sure to check out the link in the description. But that's all for now, so once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.